Hey, it's the K-Man here, and this monitor is the star of the last episode where we played a new game on this old screen, this brilliant green screen, made by Apple back in the 80s, so of course it didn't have HDMI, just this composite input. To get my new computer's input into that, I had to use this rather cool little HDMI to composite adapter, which, puts it all out into the right format for you and even outputs the audio. So it's pretty easy to, get it going and running and all. And, just a bit of fun for playing some new games on this old monitor. But let's use it for what it was created for, which was the Apple IIc released in 1984. It was the compact version of the Apple IIe, except it had all the expansions that you wanted built in, like 128 kilobytes of RAM and an 80-column card. While intending to be portable, you did have this big green screen to cart around, although if you were really keen, you could go buy a little LCD screen which sat on the top of the computer, like so, and really didn't look all that good, so not many people actually went and bought one of those. So this Apple IIc's been sitting in the carport for probably a little bit too long in a cupboard, but hey, if that doesn't work, maybe this one does. Although, it's got a bit of a rattle, so I'm definitely going to have to open it up and see what's going on inside there. If that doesn't work, then maybe number 3 will. I also only have one power supply between all of them, so well, if that doesn't work, I guess it's pretty easy to make your own power supply. So they definitely need a bit of a clean-up, but if you look around the other side, you can see just how far these have yellowed over the years, so maybe in a future episode do a bit of retro brighting. The other thing I found interesting was most of them were made in Ireland, which would have been at the only Apple-owned manufacturing plant in the world that started way back in the 80s and is still going today as also an international distribution hub. Time for a bit of cleaning, and what I like to use is a bit of, window cleaner we'll call it, which cuts through quite nicely. So already I'm seeing a bit of that discoloring is from all the dirt that's accumulated over the last 20 years that they've been in storage. For some of the more stubborn, stuck-on or, marker type stuff, I've gone to the alcohol, bit of isopropyl, which seemed to be doing a worse job until I realised, the cloth I was using was coming off onto it. So, bit of toilet paper, and now I know why on earth this stuff is so much in demand. I figured the Bully Cloth is still alright for using with window cleaner, seems to do a pretty good job. Those keys are looking a little bit too gross for my liking, so I'll clean them up, but maybe before I go completely nuts about cleaning every single little bit of this computer, I probably should go and check and see if it actually works. Since this is the IIc that does have the rattle inside, kind of got no choice but to open it up first. And I pretty much don't want to risk having some stray piece of metal go and short something out. And as was my concern, it was a little bit of metal just rattling around inside there. And a few little testing stickers which had long since lost their stick. I figure I might as well go and check underneath the keyboard and the drive to go see if any capacitors had gone and blown. And so far, looking pretty good. Oh man, I think I just sort of went a bit crazy because suddenly I just went a little bit too far and unscrewed a screw that I really shouldn't have. So my next task was to go and pull everything out and try and get that power supply off, which for some odd reason didn't want to just sort of lift off like it should. The reason why I couldn't actually get that power supply off was a bit of a problem with the old rubber decaying and sticking on. So this handy dandy card, totally not sponsored by managed to do the trick and wedge it right off. Yeah, not exactly what you want, so I better pull it apart and see what I dislodged, which was a little bit of metal that you don't exactly want to have shorting out your power supply. I totally didn't need to unscrew it, but hey, we'll put it back on and put it all back together. Those are the sounds I want to hear, except, hey, what's that there? A little open bracket just sort of sitting on the screen. Well, I'll try putting in a basic program and see if it still stays. Which, yeah, definitely does all the way up there. Well, something mustn't be right here, so I'll go and run a system test using the 2 Apple keys. And yep, that's what it is, a RAM error on the module with the number 1 on it. You just sort of count them across on the board and yep, that's the one that needs fixing. I can totally get back to that one later, but since I have a few of these 2Cs, I might as well go see how well this one is going. I am a little bit concerned about some gunk that I'm seeing in the socket there. Hopefully it's not a sign of a capacitor exploded. Fortunately, the capacitors that I was mostly concerned about are looking in pretty good nick. Yeah, not really much of a fan about how this drive doesn't have a cage on it, and the keyboard I'm not that particularly fond of either. It sort of seems to be a bit of a sign of either an earlier model or maybe it had a custom keyboard in the other 2C, but pretty much, yeah, this one's looking fine, so might as well give it a go. Yeah, kind of sounds like the disk drive isn't working. I'll give it a self-test by holding down the 2 Apple keys and switching the computer on. And it looks like it might even have an older ROM version because that wasn't actually giving me any joy. Well, I do have one more Apple to try out, so hopefully that will be the one that works. Looking on the label underneath, I can see it's the only one I've got that has been assembled in the USA, so of course it's expecting the US mains voltage in the power supply, but because it is pretty much the same computer on the inside, it is still expecting that 15 volts that the Irish ones were, so it should be fine with my Aussie power supply. I'll give it a go and switch it on, and yeah, a chessboard. So anyone up for a game? Because pretty much this is about the only thing that this Apple IIc seems to be wanting to display. After a little bit of research on the internet, I found out this is the self-diagnostics mode, which is often triggered by a stuck key or a loose ribbon cable into the keyboard. So I checked this ribbon cable on both ends and I found that the end plugged into the main board was a little bit loose. After pushing that ribbon cable in nice and hard, I was like, hey, wait a second, what's that over there? Well, had a bit of a look around on the board and the internet and found out that it's the ZRAM Ultra Free, which is one of the most sought after expansion boards for the Apple IIc because not only does it give you extra RAM, it's also a RAM drive so you can load up stuff onto it, and it lets you run the CP/M operating system inside your Apple, all made by the ever awesome Applied Engineering. Hopefully pushing that ribbon cable in did the trick, so time to try it all over again, and nah, no worries, just gonna have to go and do a bit more research and try a few more things, and of course, yeah, I'll document it all for a future video. And if you've got any ideas about what I could do to get all of these computers working again, please drop them in the comments. I've got a few ideas, but hey, let's all put our ideas together. Also, if you'd like to know how I go with all of this, please hit subscribe to the channel. I like to do a few things that are related to retro or new gaming, one way or the other. I hope you've enjoyed the video, and thank you for watching.